before we begin, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and subscribe. We're trying our best. Life in rural Russia has always been hard. Our small town, numbering less than 80,000 people, could have been considered a hopeless place by most standards. There were limited chances of accumulating wealth, very small chances of leaving our town to live in one of the bigger cities, and no vacations to exotic destinations, or any destinations to be precise. But although we were lacking in some aspects of life, other things were decent. We could afford food, and we had good access to health care. The latter was especially important for Russia because of our aging population. Most of the young people were moving to the bigger cities, and the need for neonatal wards had diminished in some small towns, such as ours. The median age of doctors was above 65. Our town had spent 7 years without a neonatology ward. For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, a neonatologist is someone who takes care of newborns in the first 28 days of their lives and handles newborn babies with problems immediately after birth. You can imagine what a surprise it was when, 2 years ago, a relatively young doctor came from St. Petersburg to work in our hospital as a neonatologist. Dr. Grigory Fyodorov, or Grisha for short, had come from St. Petersburg to our town. Pregnancy wasn't that common in our town, but there were still some young people trying to create a happy family here. Also, some of the villages near our town were served by our hospital, so the patient inflow was larger than our population. Births were, let's say, a weekly occurrence. Everyone was happy that Dr. Grisha had joined. A local newspaper even wrote an article about him. According to the article, Dr. Grigory Fyodorov was 37 years old and had spent his whole life in St. Petersburg, where he studied medicine and specialized in neonatology. His wife had died in a car crash, and shortly after, his parents passed away. He then decided to spend the rest of his life helping those most in need, the babies being born in rural Russia. The article also mentioned that Dr. Fyodorov had developed an interest in producing medicines, not discovering new cures for incurable diseases, but basic production of life-saving, well-known medications that weren't easy to find in rural Russia. For the 2 years that Dr. Fyodorov worked in our town, approximately 80 babies were saved by him. According to his own records, 2 of them were saved thanks to him producing a medication given to prematurely born infants known as surfactant, some type of oil that keeps their lungs from collapsing. This persuaded the hospital to give him a few offices in the basement to try to produce more, and they even delegated a small budget to support him. Of course, not all risky pregnancies had a happy ending. A few babies passed away, and 2 of them unfortunately died shortly after their mothers passed away while giving birth. The fathers were furious and accused the hospital staff, including Dr. Fyodorov, of malpractice that, in their words, led to the deaths of their wives and newborn children. One of the fathers, Alexei, started drinking heavily after the accident. The other, Seva, had a daughter who was 5 years old and was holding up because of her. Seva is a colleague of mine. We work together at the local municipality as food safety inspectors. He is the reason why I know so much about Dr. Fyodorov. After the accident, life became mundane and sad in our small, God-forsaken town. This was until recently, when Seva was assigned to go to training in St. Petersburg to get updated on the new food regulations that were being implemented. I was the one our boss originally wanted to send, but the journey included taking a train to a bigger city and then flying on a plane to St. Petersburg and back. The thought terrified me. I had never boarded a plane, and so Seva was chosen instead, leaving his daughter with the parents of his deceased wife. Upon returning, he seemed very agitated and one night invited me to drink at his home after his daughter had fallen asleep. These are some of the things he told me. This is not possible. It must be a mistake. He might have made a mistake in the case of Svetlana, but he has saved many other lives. He couldn't be an imposter. He is a doctor, for sure. I responded. "He has a point." Okay. Are you sure those people in St. Petersburg were correct? Are you sure they checked thoroughly? And also, if he moved here, wouldn't his records be moved to our district?" I asked. Okay. Hopefully, it is just a series of unfortunate events. The rest of the night, we continued talking about nothing important. 2 weeks later, Seva told me that the guy he bribed said there was only one diploma matching the name and that it was issued 74 years ago, indicating that Dr. Fyodorov would be 104 years old. This meant that either he was using a dead man's license and was indeed an imposter who endangered the children of our town, or that Seva was going crazy. He said that he managed to get a meeting with the governor, who told him that Dr. Fyodorov had a valid license and had indeed graduated from medical school in St. Petersburg. I decided to drop it right then and there. A few months passed. Seva was still very suspicious and started entertaining the idea of spying on Dr. Fyodorov. I urged him not to do it and to accept that bad things unfortunately happen for no reason to good people. His wife had been operated on by another doctor, and even if Fyodorov was an imposter, he wasn't responsible for her death. His responsibility was for the child, which, according to Dr. Fyodorov, had been infected with bacteria during development and was severely ill even before birth. Seva claimed that he had managed to see his child for a full minute and that it looked completely normal. I told him that maybe he was mistaken. A few more weeks passed with nothing significant, until I ended up drinking with some friends very late one Saturday. In Russia, it is customary to drink with friends at home, but this time we were drinking in front of an apartment building. Most people had already left, but I was so drunk that I wanted more. That's when I noticed Alexei, the father of the other woman and child who had passed away in the presence of Dr. Fyodorov. He was stumbling home, visibly drunk and holding an almost full bottle. I waved at him. He noticed me and waved back. "In the mood for some company?" I asked. "Always, friend?" "Come, let's go to my home. It's getting cold here." So we went to his apartment, which was a mess, rubbish all over the place, empty bottles, and what I presumed were cockroaches. We continued drinking and talking about nothing until he started telling me about his newborn son who had passed away. He then started crying. I tried comforting him, and after I was sure he was okay, I went back home as the sun was rising. The next day, I called Seva and told him that he might have been right all along. He then told me that for the last month he had been spying on Fyodorov. According to him, nothing suspicious had happened. He went to work, went home, and sometimes went drinking with other doctors. Two things, however, were suspicious. He wasn't interested in any women, and every few days he stayed until very late at night in the basement offices to work on the medicines he was supposedly preparing. Seva wanted to visit his basement offices, and after extensive discussion, I reluctantly agreed to help, but I would be the one to go inside. On a Friday night, we went for it. We entered the hospital through the emergency department. I said that I had a fever and lied that I had vomited several times. While I was waiting to be examined by the doctors, Seva snuck down one of the corridors and went downstairs. As I was waiting, an old woman with what looked like a broken arm was brought in. I excused myself to the nurse. The nurse thanked me for understanding, and I quickly left the hospital trying to locate the basement office windows. After wandering for a few minutes, I noticed the blinds of one of the small windows being lifted and a light moving inside. This must have been Seva. I went to investigate, and from what I could see through the window, which was near the ceiling of the office, it was what one would expect from a small medicine production office. Different bottles everywhere, some equipment, and a large wooden table covered with a white cloth similar to the ones used to wrap newborn babies. The only strange thing was that there were too many church candles. In Orthodox Christianity, the one mostly practiced in Russia, the candles are very thin and yellow. It was odd to see such candles in a laboratory, but maybe he used them to heat things. Seva signaled me to go away, and I did. I waited half an hour for him to emerge from the hospital. Find anything suspicious? No, to be honest, I didn't, except for the candles. Nothing out of the ordinary, he said. Let's go somewhere warm and talk there. We went to what in America might be considered a diner, ordered beers and some food, and he explained that he didn't find anything suspicious. There were a lot of chemicals, but that was expected in medicine production. Seva admitted that maybe he had actually lost his mind and was behaving irrationally. I agreed, but he said he had left the blinds open in case we decided to take another peek. In the following weeks, Seva went a few more times. He said that on one occasion, Fyodorov was there just mixing and weighing stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. This was until today. Today, in the early evening, a mother passed away after giving birth to a baby boy. The boy was taken to the neonatology ward in critical condition. We found out through some of our colleagues who are medical inspectors. We spent the night taking turns checking the offices. It's already very cold in this part of Russia, so we took 30-minute shifts while the other waited in the car parked nearby. I don't even know why I went along with it, but I guess being too old to start a family and living in the middle of nowhere left me with the desire to do something adventurous. Around 3 in the morning, during my turn, the light came on. I went closer to investigate. At first, he just lit the candles, cleared everything from the big wooden table with the baby cloth on it, and placed the candles in a circle around it. Then, he turned toward the windows. I quickly ducked out of his view. I felt like I could hear his breathing. I heard the blinds closing. I stayed down for a full minute, then heard the door on the inside close. Shit, is he coming to check on me? I thought. I was torn between bolting for the car or confronting him. But after 2 more minutes, I heard the door open again and heard the crying of a baby. What happened next is hard to explain. It was like there was wind inside the room. A storm confined in a jar. I could hear the baby crying and some chanting that was neither in English nor Russian. After a few minutes, the crying stopped and the wind sound faded. Then I heard the sound of a body dropping on the floor. It took all my courage, but I decided to take a look. Illuminated by the faint candlelight, I saw the baby unmoving on the table and Fyodorov collapsed on the floor. He looked like he had aged beyond 80, but I wasn't sure because the lights were too dim. From what I remember, his gray hair started turning blonde, and his limp body seemed to grow muscle at the rate of seconds. This was the moment I decided to get the hell out of there. I ran to the car and yelled at Seva to drive, and he did. We went to my place and I told him what I had seen, but he didn't seem to believe me. This changed the next morning, when the baby of the deceased mother was pronounced dead. According to the news, Dr. Fyodorov had spent the whole night trying to keep it alive, but at some point around 3:30 in the morning, the baby passed away due to heart problems.